Well, for all of our great radio listeners out there, we've got a real treat. Dave Mustaine, the founder of Megadeth, of course, one of the first guys there in Metallica, is here with us in Austin, Texas. It's always great to have Dave stop by. Dave, why are you in Austin, Texas?
Well, the truth is we're planning on moving to Texas, and so we're just out here house hunting, and it wouldn't be right if we didn't stop by and check in with your viewers and your listeners and see you and hang out. We consider you a close friend, and it just is the right thing to do, especially with everything that's going on right now. You know, last time we came through, we kind of talked a little bit about my world, and we didn't really talk about the world in general, which, you know, I think a lot of people that tune into your program, they want to know what I think about, you know, what they believe, and not just what I do for a living and how my work is and the people that are in it. Although that's really interesting to a lot of people, it doesn't really touch on a lot of the topical subjects that affect us all. You know, not very many people are going to end up being a rock star for 30 years.
Dave, I'm not kissing your ass here, but I've met a lot of famous people, and they've always got something, you know, magic about them. Success. People are successful for a reason, because they have passion, they have dedication, they have a lot of art they want to express, but so many of them really are arrogant and disconnected. And what I've noticed is that you are so real and down to earth, and then there's that media image that we're told about Dave Mustaine, you know, which they kind of claim is the opposite of that. But I've just found that you are a real down-to-earth guy who really cares about average people and, quite frankly, opens doors for little old ladies.
Well, I think that's just like anything. You know, there's a counterfeit for everything. And I think a lot of people, you know, the way that they spin stuff in the liberal media, they have a counterfeit to what the truth is. And I think that there's a lot of people who have asked me to do certain things, and it's been against my morals. And when I say no, instead of them accepting that, they walk away and they say stuff about me. It's kind of like when you go to the dance and you walk up to some girl that's really hot and you ask her to dance and she says no. For whatever reason, you walk away and you're like, well, F you. You know, and you fill in the blanks.
And you tell folks, she's got cooties.
Yeah, right. In a much more colorful way. And for me, a lot of that is, it's funny to read. Some of it's a little bit disappointing. It started to bother me when my kids started to read it. But it's just the way the world right now. There's a lot of cowards that sit on the other side of computers and type stuff that they would never say to your face.
We were talking about that last night, about how in the old days, if you said something about somebody, they were going to come track you down. I mean, you were going to have to defend that. Mm-hmm. And that is something entirely new, where people could just anonymously make up the most amazing stuff. I had one of my crew bring me something today that was online claiming I'd committed all these crimes. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of laughed at it. But 5, 6 years ago, I didn't understand how the web worked. I would have gotten really mad.
Right.
But, I mean, how do you deal with that? Because people can just, I mean, you're a superstar. People can...
I'm not running for public office, and I don't have my opponent saying that I'm a felon. So, you know, it's a little bit easier for me. Most people say stuff like I can't play guitar very well, or I can't sing very well, or you know, they'll make fun of my name or stuff like that. So they don't really bring up my past, because...
You make fun of the cool name like Mustaine?
Well, so there's probably a lot of ways that people can make fun of a lot.
I think they're just jealous, Dave. But you just alluded to something, and again, we've already talked about some of this, you know, driving over here to the studio. Yeah, I saw that last week. Mm-hmm. You're alluding to, I'm not claiming Mitt Romney's some great guy. I'm not in love with him. But, I mean, come on. The guy has no criminal record, not Chicago Mafia, left Bain in 99, and Obama's out there got his people calling him a felon. Excuse me, Obama, you got a lot more skeletons than Romney. Your comments.
See, here's the thing. I'm 50 years old now, and I've lived a great life, and I've been around for a long time, and most of our fans, or most of the people who are against me, are very young, and they're very impressionable, which is a part of being young. That saying that youth is wasted on young people or whatever, that's totally true. I remember when I was really young, I was very impressionable, and I believed a lot of things before I checked it out. And if I would have been told, you know, the things that I do now are going to affect me later on in life, you know, I would have probably said something like, well, I don't know that I'm going to live that long. But now that I'm 50 and I've watched so many administrations come and go, and I'm watching my children grow up, which is an awesome part of...
By the way, you've got incredible children.
Thanks. It's an awesome part of when a man and a woman marry and have children, to watch them grow up. Do you have concerns about stuff like that? And you know, sometimes our fans that are younger, they look to me as a big brother or even a father figure because I really care a lot about them. But I have never been more terrified in my life about what's happening to our country. And you know, I believe that if we continue on the same path that we're on right now, that America will never be the same. I freaked out the other day because I was looking at some investment stuff and just reading it. And one of the things that it said was that if you get a second passport and you plan on moving out of the country, if you denounce your citizenship because of the taxes that are going on here or any of the things that are going on, like the police state we've become, that if you want to get your passport back, you have to know things like, where did your mom... where did she live before you were born, all the way up to now? Where did she go in for prenatal care? Who was in the operating room when you were born? All these ridiculous... Oh,
it's even worse than that. They've introduced a law where if you move somewhere, it's just over. You can never come back. They've introduced the law, and they've introduced a law, which is close to passing. People can look this up if you're listening. This is not a joke. I mean, I feel like it's not a joke. I feel like I'm lying, and this is like Associated Press because it's so crazy. It's not America. Like having the president badmouth, you know, you didn't build your business. We're going to talk about that in a minute, Dave. But they actually came out and said that if the IRS claims you haven't paid all the taxes, no proof, no court, you can't leave.
Well, a friend of ours who just, it's a wonderful lady that's a friend with my wife and her husband who's Canadian. They wanted to go back up to Canada and they wouldn't let them go because there was a tax lien on their house because of a contractor who had done some shady work and they didn't want to pay him. So the guy put a lien on their house and they're in court right now, but they couldn't even go up to Canada to go visit their relatives.
Incredible. So it's already being put into place. So the clock is closer to midnight than we thought, but...
Well, here's another thing before we get off of this. I again, looking at these financial things, because, you know, I've got, I'm, you know, filling out my will and everything right now because, you know, I'm nearing the end of my life and hopefully I'll live a long, long time, but I have to face reality. You know, I'm getting at that age where a lot of men, you know, make that journey either to heaven, which I think I'm going to, or some to hell. And I was looking at this thing and it said that you cannot open a bank account out of the United States of America anymore. If I move to England and say I live there for the rest of my life, if I open a bank account there, they have to notify the United States.
Yes.
So that the United States can continue to tax me even if I don't live in the United States anymore. And I thought, this is crazy.
Well, America's been taken over by this global government. It is insane. It's not America anymore when these globalist interests take us over and overthrow our Bill of Rights and Constitution. But just to have you repeat what you told me off air about the point about, again, Romney is being called a criminal by Obama, and meanwhile, Obama is engaged in all this stuff.
Mm-hmm. It's sad. It's sad. You know, when you look at Pelosi, Reid, and Obama, they got to remember it's we the people, not we three people. And I am absolutely stunned that, you know, Bill Clinton was going to be impeached for having inappropriate behavior with one person, yet these three are screwing the entire nation and the world, and nobody's doing anything about it. I don't understand why there hasn't been a motion to impeach the guy.
Well, your point right before we went live here was that you've got a Fast and Furious, you've got Solandra, you've got all this corruption openly going on, and then the media's like, Romney's a felon.
Right.
And again, it's not that Romney's perfect. It's just that this guy calls the police on his neighbor when they're smoking pot in the backyard. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's not shipping guns to Mexico to blame it on the Second Amendment. I mean, it's just, let's shift gears to that. Mm-hmm. Dave, what is your take on Fast and Furious, and then tying it in to this new event, this tragedy right next to Columbine in Colorado outside Denver, this tragedy that happens a week and a half before Obama says he'll sign the UN treaty, and he's trying to get Congress to ratify it, to register and ban a bunch of our guns.
Well, I had heard about this a while ago, and I had hoped that it was just rumor. But, you know, while we were on stage, we have a song called Guns, Drugs, and Money that we play, and I had gotten so offended as an American that the president had exercised his executive privilege to cover up somebody who, Eric Holder, who... to me, I believe that if you're held in contempt and you have documents that are going to either exonerate you or put you in jail, why hide them if it's going to get you off the hook? So that to me is really mind-blowing, and I guess it's been proven that it was staged to restrict the Second Amendment, and it's not just that. The crimes that it appears that is taking place, when you look at the Constitution, there's something in the Constitution where you have to get congressional permission to go to war, and if you don't get congressional permission, there's a clause in there where you have a certain amount of time after that where you have to get permission to go to war. And to my knowledge, when we went into Libya, that didn't happen. And it still hasn't happened.
No, you're right. In fact, if there's some emergency, he's got a couple months. But then after that, you've got to go get the congressional approval. They control the purse. And they sent in the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the other generals, the Secretary of Defense, Panetta, and Obama put a letter out when Congress said, hey, you got to get approval from us. He said, no, I get it from the UN and NATO. We put a letter out, and they had him go before Congress. We played the clips on the show. They're so incredible. And I think that woke up the military and police more than anything I've seen. Now, if I go downtown Austin, the cops just stop and go, you were right, we apologize, it's all true. I mean, I think when I was in Virginia, Bullhorning, Bilderberg, the cops were on our side and would come over and go, no, we saw that. They told us that. I mean, think about that. I'm getting chills right now, Dave.
What bothers me the most about it is the fact that they have these shills that are going on all of the programs defending this Fast and Furious thing. And Brian Terry lost his life, and his family, you can try not to watch TV. You can try not to look at the newspapers, but you see this stuff. And it must be devastating to see your own president just kind of sliding this whole thing under the rug. And the thing behind all of this is that, it's not going to stop. When we go through traveling through all the different checkpoints over through Europe, before all the globalization was taking place, and each country had its own border and they had their own language and stuff like that. You'd come up to customs, you go to the border, you'd have to stop and hand in their passport and stuff like that. And now you just kind of roll through there. But when you come to your own country, it's harder to come home. It's harder to go through an airport here in the United States of America than it was for us even in Moscow. We just got back from Moscow, and we rolled through there so fast. I was laughing about it because we got out of the plane, through customs, got our luggage, and we're in the vans rolling to the hotel for the show faster than we get through customs when I come home to the U.S.
We're not as free as we thought. And what's amazing is it's on the news. Obama legalized a bunch of illegals. And when they do fake stings of businesses and stuff, they just release them. And they're now telling sheriffs all over the country that they are not going to pick up illegals that they arrest, even if they're committing crimes.
I don't know anything about that, but I do know that from the people that we've spoken to that are Latino, that we have a huge contingency of Latino fans here in Texas,
all over,
in New Mexico, and Arizona, and California. Central and South America, in Spain, and in a lot of the neighboring countries around Spain that are still Spanish-speaking fans. And they have relatives that are here, whether they're legal or illegal, and they know that this was a move to get votes. They know that. The one thing that you can't make, just because they don't speak English doesn't mean they're stupid.
Exactly. Well, they've had a lot of tyranny in Latin American countries. They're certainly more savvy in many ways.
Yeah, they are.
Finishing up with Fast and Furious, if Obama can get away with shipping close to 20,000 guns and hand grenades into Mexico and guns into Honduras, and then states like Florida and Illinois to drug gangs for whatever reason, I mean, my gosh, what are they going to get away with next? I mean, it really is creepy.
I do know this. It's really amazing how our liberties are being taken away from us. It's like the frog in the pot of boiling water. If it was boiling water when he jumped in, he'd jump back out. But they slowly turn the temperature up. The frog will stay in there until he boils to death. And that's what's happening to us right here. We don't know what's going on. A lot of the American people are so busy working their asses off to make ends meet right now. They don't have time to sit in front of the news. And the news is such pablum. It's opium for the masses. And it's stuff that you want to feel good. See, the thing that I laugh about when I hear Obama say, oh, give the folks a chance. Give everybody a chance, take away from the rich people. Well, what happens when the folks that he's given a chance gets a chance, becomes successful, is rich, well, then all of a sudden, you're Obama's enemy now. And the thing for me is that, you know, I'm in that 1% that he's talking about. Megadeth won't be able to tour anymore once all these things that he's planning on doing to me happens. On top of the fact that...
Yeah, we've talked privately. You said, listen, after all the taxes and everything, I'm getting like 20% of it. If they do this, it's over.
Yeah.
And that's what happens in Venezuela or Russia. They don't get it. Once you cut out that small profit margin, it's over.
It's done. It's done. And the fact that he would say that I did not build my own business offends me tremendously. I'm disgusted with this guy. And you know, he's my president. You know, I respect the office of the presidency, but I think as a person and the things that he says, I've never heard anything this offensive ever come out of the mouth of a president. And I'm 50. I've heard a lot of presidents talk in my life. And, you know, listeners out there can say what they want about me or be mad at what I'm saying right now. And I'm saying this out of love for you guys. You know, you may not have love in your heart for me, but I have love in my heart for you. And that's why I'm a public figure and I play music. I try and educate people through lyrics. Some of the songs could be construed as being a little bit, you know, unrealistic. You know, some of the songs are a little bit fun. You know, they're make-believe topics and stuff like that. But songs like Peace Sells, But Who's Buying is still relevant today. Songs like Holy Wars is still relevant today.
More relevant than ever.
Yeah, absolutely. And that wasn't because I was clever and I came up with a lyric. I paid attention. I watched what happened through the Carter years, through the Ford years, and watched how, you know, what Jimmy Carter did to our country, taxes at 70%, you know, when I was growing up and thinking, how on earth did anybody survive back then? For me, when you take out 5% for the business manager, 15% for the personal manager, 10% for the agent, and 45% for taxes, what's left for Dave? You know, and people think, oh, Dave's a millionaire. No, Dave isn't. Dave is an American that's getting plowed by the government.
Listen, over 90% of the money, it's like 95 that comes in here, goes to the crew and taxes, and they all pay taxes. Mm-hmm. People don't get it. I mean, feudal serfs paid about 10%. We pay almost everything. They just, I mean, people have no idea. They think, well, they've done actuaries where if you took all the rich people's money, what they call rich, in the United States, it'd run the country for like 3 months. I mean, it's gone. But that's who goes and gets their hair done. That's who goes and buys cars and buys houses and buys clothes. That's who's buying stuff.
Right.
You get rid of the middle class and the rich people, it's over. But the ultra-rich, they're offshore. They're actually the ones selling this monopoly.
Right. And, you know, the funny thing was many years ago when Obama first got in office, I had said something. I was in Australia, and I was on the radio, and a lot of people took exception to what I said. I said that he was the most divisive president that I've ever seen, and look what's happening right now. There's race wars, there's class wars, you know, there's sexual wars now, there's religious wars, and you know, don't we remember how smooth this guy was when he was saying that, you know, we're going to bring everybody together and he's for change and hope.
His minions would say, "Thank you, I'm getting a free house," and he wouldn't disagree with them. But they're not getting a free house now. That's what's so amazing about this, Dave, is that when he says, if you have a small business, you didn't build that. That's a quote. I mean, that is a direct attack on the American dream. And everybody I know who's a musician, an artist, a person that gets up at 4 a.m. to make a bricklayer donuts, they know, no, I did this, man. Don't sit there and say I didn't do this.
Get up in the morning and they...
The little bit you get to keep.
Yeah.
And then they're telling you didn't do that.
So see, for me, the way that I get any kind of solace out of what's going on right now, because, you know, I've been playing for a long time and I don't plan on playing another 30 years, although, you know, I would like to be able to play music for the rest of my life. I don't know that I'll be doing it on the road. The pleasure I get out of that is being on stage, looking at people's faces, smiling and stuff like that. You know, the screeching reality is when you travel and you go back through the airports. When we left here last time, my 14-year-old was groped by the TSA, and I was so mad. I was swearing, and the one very large woman said, "What's that?" And I said, "You heard what I said." And Pam, my wife, grabbed me and she said, "Don't say anything," because she knows that these guys are power drunk and that they probably would have arrested me for just saying something about them groping my 14-year-old. The thing that really is blowing me away is this molecular scanner, this pico scanner, whatever they're talking about. And it's not only here, the Russians have one too. So it's something that's very real. And I read up on that, and it says it's about gunpowder and explosives, and that's what the primary purpose of it is. But it also says that it can read inside of your system and say what kind of medication you're on. So I imagine with this...
It's a total invasion of your Fourth Amendment.
Right. I imagine that what they're going to do is they're going to have a database to cross-reference whether the person that shows up that's got narcotics in his system is under doctor's care or not. Or if, you know, they for example, for me, when we're on tour, we're around people who do pyro. And pyro is gunpowder and explosives for the fireworks.
Yeah, you have fire and explosions.
So if I shake hands with my pyrotechnician, I'm going to get arrested for being a terrorist because I've got trace elements of gunpowder and explosives on me because there's fireworks going on. On top of the fact that because of the cocaine use and people using dollar bills,
it's on everything.
There's traces of cocaine on all money, so anybody touching currency is going to have trace remnants of cocaine on their hands. That's going to show up, and it's just madness, you know, to think that it's getting to this point. I mean, I can handle us having security, but not like this.
Alex Jones here with a very important announcement for truth seekers. We've carried a lot of amazing films and books over the years on the online video bookstore at Infowars.com. And out of all the titles we've carried, one stands out because it is just so chillingly convincing. And that's Dreams from My Real Father by Joel Gilbert, available at Infowars.com. This film exposes the fraud that Obama is like nothing I've seen. If you want to know who Obama's real daddy is, this is the film for you. Don't forget, your purchase supports our broadcast and our growing media network. You'll also find at InfoWarsShop.com None Dare Call It Conspiracy by Gary Allen, the book that woke me up. We're also carrying Behind the Green Mask, UN Agenda 21 by Rosa Corey. This book is coffin nails to the globalist takeover. The Greater Good, the most professional and up-to-date film I've ever seen exposing the scourge that is vaccines. These titles and a lot more are all available at InfoWarsShop.com. It's about making all of us the criminals, but the state is exempt. Look at all the TSA agents that have been caught being convicted pedophiles. They're hiring felons, robbing people, abusing.
Yeah, I saw something the other day. This guy was an artist, and he had a ½ ounce of weed in his suitcase, and the guy wrote on one of those cards that I get in my suitcases every time I open them, "Come on, son." But they left his herb in there, and the guy tweeted and said, "Can you believe this guy let me off?" And
I saw that. I saw the note. So it's all selectively enforced. And then a woman had a catheter. They ripped that out of her. Colostomy bags.
Oh, my God.
Old World War II vets. People.
Children.
I mean,
handicapped kids.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah.
It's all a giant power grab. And now they're saying because of the shooting out in Denver, they want TSA in the malls.
Yeah, people will stop going to movies. And you know, if the people that own the theaters are that stupid, they're going to put themselves out of business. You know, and rightly so. If they do that, they deserve to be put out of business.
Yeah, because even though it's a tragedy, 13 dead and 70 plus wounded, that many die every day on the state's highways in Texas. I mean, literally, they're hyping this culture of total fear up. When we talked this morning after the shooting out in Denver, I mean, we discussed your bottom line gut feeling, and most of my listeners agree. I mean, you've got a UN treaty next week. You've got every time they want to pass legislation, they don't have the votes in the Senate. They're a couple shy, and then magically this happens. It's a guy in a mask, and then they catch some other guy who's involved in some government program with brain technology. All they do is drug some guy up, and then like Sirhan, they say he's I mean, what's your gut, Dave, about what happened here?
Well, I'm very, very sorry for the loss of human life, for the people that were at the movie theater, for the victims, and the loss for the families. So I don't want to seem insensitive at all, because if it happened to me or any of my family, I would be outraged.
But they want to know who did it, really.
They do want to know who did it. And the thing is, you got to ask yourself, where do you get flash grenades from?
How do you, because they admit it's a modern theater, those things are sunk in. They only open one way. It's not like it's just an iron hinge. It's in the wall and opens. A rhinoceros can't knock those down. Everybody's pointing that out. Yeah. How did he knock? They said he knocked the door down.
I don't know. I don't know enough about the actual thing because, you know, we've been out here house hunting and I saw your tweet this morning, or your text to me this morning, and I thought, oh my God, Alex has lost his mind because you said something about Batman and what happened, and I was like, huh? And then I saw it on the news this morning, and I was mortified. But see,
my text was like, I think this is staged to pass the UN treaty.
But see, the thing is that I had said something about this whole gun thing, and that I thought it was very cowardly that the Obama administration had used Hillary Clinton to go behind the backs of the American people to get this done in the UN instead of get it done in the U.S. because the people of America won't go for it. One of the reasons that the Japanese didn't push past Pearl Harbor was there was a famous emperor or something that he said that he wasn't going to go to the mainland because behind every blade of grass was an American with a gun. And, you know...
that was Admiral Yamamoto, yeah.
Yeah, and I was just reading something a couple days ago. I think it was Washington had said something about, you know, having... arms is what gives America its teeth. And I can't...
Call them liberty teeth. It gives the teeth to the First Amendment.
Right.
The Second Amendment. You're absolutely right, Dave, and you're quoting Veritas here. The whole thing reeks to high heaven.
Yeah, and again, like I said, you know, I had heard that there were flash grenades that were used.
Yeah.
And the only people that can get those are military and police.
That's what they said. They said there was like multiple guys in black uniforms, and they thought there were multiple shooters, and no one did anything because he was, quote, a cop. And somebody went and opened the door and let him in. But first, they knocked the door down. Let me tell you. And then it's a white guy living in an almost completely black apartment complex, and now his house is booby-trapped. I mean, this thing looks... Look, why does it always happen?
Sad for the neighbors there because, you know, having your house booby-trapped, people that are near you are going to be hurt, you know. It's just so sad the way the world has become. You know, for me, I'm a Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ. He's my Lord and Savior, and I know that you know, there's a big plan. I talked about that in Holy Wars. And, you know, I'm just shaking my head thinking, God, how bad is it going to get? How bad is it really going to get? You know?
Dave, I think this is just the beginning. I think you foresaw it decades ago. I mean, I think this is just the beginning of
George Orwell foresaw it decades ago. I got to tell you, when I read 1984, I thought, this is the craziest stuff in the world. You know, this will never happen. And right now, they've got people going back in the books and taking stuff out of the history books to change things. And just like Orwell said in 1984, when the guys were there going back and erasing people ever lived that had gone against the government. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah, that's because he'd actually been
a poster here that says Ingsoc, and I knew exactly what that was.
Exactly. He had been a communist and discovered it was all a fraud. So he'd worked for Stalin in Spain. And so that's why he said, well, I couldn't get this published as a nonfiction because so many Brits in the intelligentsia were socialist. So he said, I got it published as a fiction book. But no, he'd experienced that type of double think and double speak, and he extrapolated that this is what communism would build if it took over. And is North Korea not the 1984 system? I mean, it's the ultimate expression.
Wow. That's a whole nother show.
Dave, we have talked about so much here tonight, and there's a few other points that I wanted to raise here for you. What do you, I mean, you have the courage to speak out for what you believe, and the media distorts it and stuff, but in the final equation, people know you're for real, and that's why your fans appreciate you. But what do you make of, say, last year, Hank Williams Jr. comes out and criticizes Obama and says, he actually still, the full quote was, both parties are destroying America, we're becoming Nazi Germany. And I'm mad at Obama. But they came out and said, he says Obama is Nazi Germany. What do you make of them getting him kicked off Monday Night Football? By the way, he's selling more records I saw the other day now since that happened.
That's the sweetest revenge of all, success. And, I'm not a huge fan of Hank Williams Jr., not because I don't like him, but it's because I don't really know him. But I did see him on a show the other day playing some music, and I was thinking what it must be like to be somebody in that genre, to be at the top of your game, and then to have someone try and publicly spank you by doing something like that. I didn't think he was the kind of guy that would take that kindly, and that he probably would in some way get his revenge. And success is the best revenge.
Well, that's it. And he's putting out records now just saying, you know what? I'll keep my guns. I'll keep my family. I'll keep my freedom. You can keep your change.
The funny thing, too, when you say keep our guns, with this thing about people, having to give their guns back, all that's going to do is it's going to prompt more illegal gun purchases, and it's going to cause a lot of deaths of law officers and military men and women who are going to be forced to go against the Second Amendment to come and get our guns. And the thing that I appreciate a lot is the oath keepers who have taken the oath to be a military person, a serviceman or woman, and which says that they're going to uphold the Constitution, and you can't skip parts of the Constitution. It's not like a smorgasbord where you can just take what you want and leave the rest. The whole thing is the Constitution, not part, not half, not quarters, nothing. So for anybody to expect these men and women to have to actually go against their oath that they took, their oath, everything, their moral fiber, put their word on the line and go out there and risk their life for us, and then come back and maybe potentially kill Americans just because they have firearms, which is our right, that just reeks of I mean, I don't even want to say the word because it's to me, it just seems like communism, and I don't want to be like some McCarthyism kind of guy,
No, but when tyranny comes, you've got to recognize it, Dave, and you have incredible courage here. It is the military and police, because I was critical 10 years ago or so before I understood a more sophisticated view. On average, I've met them, as you have. They're really good people.
They're good people. A lot of them are.
And they've been given false paradigms to follow, but now the fact that they are being trained for gun confiscation, that's finally woke them up. Most of them are actually saying, we're not going to do it. So the tyrants on top, Obama and his controllers, they're trying to get this in place. But here's the deal. No one's going to follow that order. The vast majority.
I don't think so either. And, one of the things about police officers, a lot of people call them pigs. I had two brother-in-laws that were cops. And, they weren't bad cops. If you want to know why cops go bad, watch the movie Serpico. And it's
pressure, peer pressure.
Yeah, peer pressure. And the fact that, you're going to go out and fight crime. And there was one scene in the movie where he was just left to be shot. Oh, I've
interviewed Frank Serpico. He's a listener.
Really?
He's an amazing guy. We just had him on, 2 weeks ago? Yeah.
Well, I watched the movie when I was a kid, and I'm a big Al Pacino fan, and I remember the movie a lot. I remember when I first went to New York, we were kind of talking to people and saying, who do you think you are, Serpico? This kind of stuff. But the bottom line is that, my brother-in-laws were good men and they were good cops. And we have so many military men and women that come to Megadeth shows, and, they go like, Holy Wars, oh man, hey, we got Vic painted on our tank. I got pictures of stealth bombers and stuff like that with our logo on the front, or Vic, the one particular one shows them in a conductor's outfit, and the plane's called Symphony of Destruction. To me, that's very flattering, because when I was a kid, we had, I think it was the Korean War was happening when I was 18, and I put my card in for the Selective Service. I was ready to go. If they would have drafted me, I would have gone. I wasn't a draft dodger. So, I grew up to really respect the men and women who go out and fight for us.
Absolutely. Dave Mustaine, pretty powerful interview here today. I mean, there's so many points to cover. It's our choice, liberty or tyranny. What is the bottom line? If you have to crystallize who Dave Mustaine and Megadeth, Megadeth.com, everything you stand for, what is it?
I'm a Christian man who loves his family, loves his country, and most importantly, loves God. And I'm willing to fight for those things. And I'm willing to share those things with people that would like to know about it. Not willing to get into it with people who don't care about it. I'm not going to defend myself or explain myself. It is what it is.
I agree with that. I found that debating, it's like pearls before swine. If people want to just, you know what, it's like, great, hey, you got your views. I'm not going to fight with you about it.
Well, I got a pig analogy, too. It's like teaching a pig how to sing. It'll never work, and it annoys the pig.
All right, Dave, what's coming up new with Megadeth? You're in demand all over the world. The new album, 13, has done really well. What's coming up new for Megadeth?
Well, we're really excited about what's going on. We're getting ready to do a new record. We're leaving in a couple days for Asia, and we'll be coming back and continuing work on this new record, and go to South America in September and come back home and continue to do work on the new record. We're looking for a new release the beginning of next spring, hopefully. And we're super excited about what's going on for us. We've continued to congeal as a band with David Ellison coming back, and he and Sean Drover as our rhythm section. It's very important the bass player and the drummer are tight. And David is such an excellent bassist, and Sean's such a great drummer. The two of them just needed to be familiar with one another. And they spend time together all day long when we're on tour, traveling and doing things, mostly seeking out Starbucks around the world. But you know, I'm excited about the music that we're going to be writing. We just changed agencies. We're with the prestigious CAA agency in Beverly Hills. We're going to be going to sign a new contract for our recording career. Our contract with Roadrunner's up. We haven't really notified anybody what our decision is, and as soon as we do, you'll be one of the first people we tell about, because we're still kind of deciding. But for the most part, we're getting ready to record this next record, and I'm sure it's going to be chock full of all kinds of subject matter that our class of 2008 has given us.
In closing, I think it's safe to say that you're not going to be intimidated. You're going to say what you believe. You're going to stand, for liberty, and success is the greatest, revenge. Living well is the greatest revenge, as the French say. But going back here, Megadeth's always been hot as a pistol for 20-plus years. But am I wrong in saying just what I hear on radio and see out there, that it's even getting hotter, or that it's what you'd call a resurgence? Are you seeing that happen?
You mean as far as people showing up, popularity with the music?
Yeah, all I know is I just see and hear more of a Megadeth buzz than I heard 5 years ago.
Well, I think that when if you look at the cycle, music is cyclical. Heavy metal in general is more popular when times are tough, which is a terrible dynamic. If you look at the paradigm, heavy metal music should not be successful when people are struggling. But that's one of the things that, they don't want to hear a bunch of, vapid, anorexic, alternative, androgynous guys that are singing about love and flowers and, these kind of like ecstasy trips and stuff. They want to know what's going on. They want to know what's happening in their world. And they want to have people they can look to who are rugged individuals who don't look like they could very easily be your sister, And,
oh, man.
And they want to have somebody that they can believe in, somebody who's been successful. One of the things that we do when we meet people backstage, which is always a privilege for us to meet our fans and thank them, because a lot of times they thank us, and it's usually like,
no, I agree. When fans thank me, I'm like, no, you don't get it. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't you.
Yeah. Like I just was talking with one of the directors for World Vision, which is a Christian organization that helps the poor, and because of our fans, we've been financially successful. So that me being obedient as a Christian, I tithe, and for the last 2 years, we were capable of tithing an amount that provided brand new clean water wells in Africa for villages that had no water. So we saw the villages prior to the wells, and the kids had to drink water out of these filthy wells that animals drank out of and defecated.
Well, that's what makes them sick. Yeah.
Right. And now they're drinking clean water, and you see them after they're done, they go and smile. And I started getting tears in my eyes watching them, to hear the mothers say that the children couldn't bathe before because they had to decide.
Wow, Dave. You reap what you sow. I don't think there's any other rock bands out there. I don't mean to be mean, but the head of YouTube got caught. Bono, he got caught giving less than 1% to charity while he's pushing UN and global government. And I can't imagine raising millions of dollars and not actually. But you are. You're really actually giving right out of what you raised to build water wells.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't like to toot your horn, but that's a good thing.
Well, I think the cool thing about it was, at the end of the day, you see that the 200 villagers in each village that received the wells, approximately 200 people per village, not only did they get healthy, They also were able to get their livestock healthy. They were able to plant gardens. And one of the success stories was one of the first gardens. They took their 10% of their harvest and gave it to another poor village. And they sell their vegetables now, and they sell the extra water that they have. The flow of the water is stronger than what they can consume or irrigate their gardens with. So they sell the overflow to the other villages there. Now, this has happened twice. And we plan on sticking with World Vision. And I tweeted about this to our fans and just said, thank you so much for doing this, because it wouldn't have happened without the fans' support. We wouldn't have had the opportunity to do that.
But wait a minute. You didn't raise that money off working hard to help build water wells. The government did it. And
I didn't build this business.
Dave, you didn't learn how to play guitar.
Mm-mm. Obama taught me how to play guitar.
You didn't ride around all those buses and, you know, all that hard work, long way to the top. You want to rock and roll, it's a long way to the top unless government does it. Do you want to just be honest and apologize to government? Do you want to thank Kim Jong-il, Mao, Stalin, and all them and thank them for helping you be who you are today?
No.
Oh, man. I love
beep that out, because they'll be so hypocritical with all my Christian stuff.
Oh, whatever. You know, that's what I don't like is some of these fake Christians, like Pharisees. They get mad at people that are real with a cuss word, but then don't care about real evil going on. You know,
I'm a freedom fighter. I really try and set a good example for our listeners and stuff like that. But as far as like thanking, people who oppress the masses, when you see some of these leaders that are in gold gilded palaces and the people are just right outside. Like when we went into India, for example, we stayed in a hotel that had 300 rooms and 600 staff.
Wow.
And right outside the hotel, people were begging in the street, and you could throw pennies in the street, and the children would literally fist fight each other over it. I'm not some sissy that cries all the time, but I was very
it's depressing,
upset about that, because you know what? I hate hardship. I was homeless. I lived on the street. I lived in a car for a long time. I'm trying to tell my kids who have been brought up, in a very safe environment. Your dad lived on the street. Oh no, you didn't. I can't even imagine you living on the street.
Oh, I know. They have no idea. Yeah.
And now I'm really grateful for everything that
you're grateful for what Obama gave you, because Dave, you came up from nowhere to do everything you've done from the street, and that was thanks to government, even though you didn't get any government help.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
In fact, I want to thank government for my 17 years on air and the crew out there running the show now. And
you know what's sad about all this is that even though we're joking around about this is no joking matter.
No, I had so much crew. When you said earlier a president saying this, it didn't register. Darren McBreen, one of our reporters, came up that morning after he said it, like last Monday, and he said, I never thought I'd hear a president talk like that. It's so weird. It's like something Mao Zedong would say.
Right, right. I'm not really aware of what Mao Zedong said, but I do know who he was and what he did. And it just surprises me. Again, to go back to this thing, why hasn't somebody moved to impeach this man? With all of the proof about his birth certificate being fake, and you see the signs in Kenya that says the birthplace of Barack Obama. Hello? Come on, guys. How stupid are we right now?
His own PR people for 16 and a half years, his publicist,
everything he has
put out that he was born in Kenya. His wife says he was born there, but then we go, hey, you say you're born in Kenya. Shut up, conspiracy theorist.
Yeah. Well, the one thing, I guess the best revenge is when you look back in history at what Michelle wore at his inauguration. She had a black dress on with 2 red triangles, so she looked like the Black Widow turned upside down.
Yeah.
You ever seen that?
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, so there's got to be some symbology there. You just don't wear something like that to some event like that without there being some kind of future message being told.
Well, Dave, we've done a lot of interviews in the last 5-6 years that I've interviewed you, but I think this is the best overall. Amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For spending time with us. And people can, follow you at Twitter?
At Twitter, at Megadeth.com, we have a lot of different ways you can, depending on how deep they want to get involved with us. We've got a really great fan club, our cyber army, and our Facebook page, and we have 2 different ways that we tweet. One is me, myself, but we also have a character our mascot, Vic Rattlehead, and he's got his own Twitter account. And the stuff that I don't feel comfortable saying, he'll say.
Good. So Rattlehead said it. All right. Peace sells, but who's buying? Dave Mustaine, thank you so much for this interview.
You're
great,
welcome.
Great seeing you here in Austin, brother.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, folks. Well, that's interview with Dave Mustaine, Megadeth.com. I'm Alex Jones of Infowars.com, signing off from the front lines of the Infowar, because there's a war on for your mind.